Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk, a podcast where in between sips, your Catholic questions are answered. I'm your host, Father Brad Doyle, and I have with me our resident good Catholics, Peter Gone and Alex Mersch. Dudes, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Father. How you doing?
Fantastic. What about you, Alex?
I'm doing well.
Hey, what are y'all sipping on? What kind of coffee here?
I think it's Pete's Best. No, Seattle's Best. That's what it is. Seattle's Best coffee, just from my coffee pot at home. But at lunchtime, I had about half a pot left, so I stuck it in the fridge to ice to bring here. So I've got a solid 32 ounces to work through here. So, yeah.
Dang, man. Well, I'm going with PJ's. It's a classic staple of New Orleans. PJ's coffees in the non-environmentally friendly cup.
I like the color of the cup.
Yeah, it's kind of a little Mardi Gras-ish.
Yeah.
Just black coffee.
It is Lent.
And what's going on in y'all's life?
I got nothing. I mean, it's kind of standard, same old week. Just hanging out with the baby, trying to get sleep.
That's going to be you.
Yeah, it's a good life, but not much to report there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Alex?
Mama Mersch is coming into town tonight. She got here a couple hours ago. She's just hanging out until I get back. We're gonna go out to dinner, and
you know where you should go.
Where?
That karaoke place. No, what was it? Where did we go?
Coyote Joe's. I haven't been there. I don't think I've been there since you were here, Father.
Dude, you need to take your mom to Coyote Joe's. That place was amazing.
I don't think it's open.
Nothing's open these days.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Really?
The mechanical bull. Father, I think I was sore for 2 weeks after that.
I literally pulled a muscle in I think I pulled my MCL or something. But I stayed on for a solid 15 seconds.
I don't doubt it.
My performance.
There you go.
Well, look, I'm so pumped because me and my dad just booked a trip to Bandon Dunes. Have you ever heard of Bandon Dunes?
No, where's that?
So it's in Oregon. It's on the coast, on the Pacific coast. It's kind of South Oregon. And it's a golf resort. It's some of the best golf courses in the country, like public golf.
Nice.
And we're calling it, it's me and my dad and his friends, and we're calling it, instead of Bandon Dunes trip, we're calling it the Bandon Dudes trip.
Oh.
So
love it.
It's just link style. It's like old school, no cart paths. You got to walk it. You got caddies, named Chester, and they're just taking you around. And I'm just going to lose a lot of balls and just hang out with my dad. So I'm really pumped. And that's in right after Easter. So,
that sounds like a great time.
That's great.
It's going to be fantastic.
All right, what's your go-to golf ball? I have to know.
Right now I'm hitting TP5s, TaylorMade's,
okay.
best ball. I've kind of got Chrome Soft is also good, Callaway's ball. I kind of stay away from Titleist. Don't want to mess with Titleist. It's too expensive. I did use Vice, which sounds bad. I wish they were called Virtue, but Vice golf balls, which are they're straight to consumer, so it kind of takes some of the price off.
Just a golfer's trick for you, actually. If you're into golfing and you want the Titleist Pro V1s, if you go to Costco, the Kirkland brand golf balls are the same patent as Titleist Pro V1s.
Just a different label.
Yep.
I knew it because my mom grabbed me some Costco ones. She saw it at Costco, and me and my dad were like, "What, Costco golf balls? This is gonna be." Oh wow, that was really good. Yeah. When we hit them, we're like, "Dude, I backed that 9-iron up from 140, and backed it up a couple feet."
There you go.
Anyway, everyone who's not into golf right now is like, "Shut your mouth, Father. We got to get to the Catholic questions." Y'all ready for what's percolating?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's percolating is where the questions percolating in your head get answers from the church's tradition. What do we got today, Peter?
All right. Joy asks, why do Catholics have so many names and titles for Mary? These obviously aren't different people, but we seem to treat Mary a little bit differently based on what title we use for her. So what's the deal with that?
Awesome. Joy makes a great distinction right off the bat. that I think I just want to start off with. That the different titles of Mary do not denote different people. And some people need to hear that. I think there's so many misconceptions out there, and especially, let's say, if you're not Catholic and you're listening to this, or you didn't, you were baptized Catholic, but maybe you weren't catechized, or you didn't know this. Like, it's not shameful to not know something. It's just bad to not ask, right? So, so let's example some titles: Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Czestochowa, Our Lady of Lourdes, right? All these Our Ladies, even the term Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame means
Notre Dame,
Our Lady in
yeah.
French. All of those are not different saints. They're just different titles of Mary. So she did make a good distinction. Someplace you can see this, it actually stands out the most. And I never thought about it from this perspective until I went to the March for Life, and we bring we bring a band every year. We have like a praise and worship band with our group for night times when we're at this the Camp Let's, YMCA Camp Let's at night, and we do like youth ministry stuff and adoration and confession. And so like the drummer that year wasn't Catholic, and so he's walking around the Shrine of Most Blessed, or not Shrine of Most Blessed Sacrament, Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, and in it is just literally every title of Mary and a chapel for each one. So there's like a chapel of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a chapel for Our Lady of Lourdes, and all these different titles, and it's the Immaculate Conception, right? So it's Mary. It's
Right
Mary's
off the
shrine.
bat, if any of our listeners, you don't know the Basilica of the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, that insanely long name. If you don't know the church we're talking about, I think it's well worth your time to pause this podcast right now and then just Google it, if you can, if you're not driving or whatever, because that is such an impressive building, and that's like home to me because I went to school at CUA at Catholic U, and so I spent a lot of time there, and that's a beautiful example. How did your drummer react to that?
So he's not Catholic, but he was like a serious evangelical, right?
Uh-huh.
So he was really weirded out, and in fact,
bet.
at first he was like, "Who are all these different saints?" And then I said, "Oh, they're all Mary," and he got even more weirded out. And so basically my answer is what I told him, right? So Joy, you're getting the answer that I gave the drummer. That would be epic if Joy was a drummer.
What do you think?
I'm gonna go ahead and say no, but
What?
I
Why are you
wouldn't
gonna
be
throw
surprised.
Joy under the bus?
No, we know Joy. We know Joy. That's why we're.
yeah,
I think she could, if she wanted to. If she put her mind to it, I think she could.
I think so too. I think we should encourage her to be a drummer.
Yeah.
Joy the drummer, great question. I'm going to give you the answer I gave to the drummer. I'll start with 1 Corinthians chapter 9. St. Paul says this: "Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible." So there's this idea that Mary, when she's encountering different people in different cultures, when she's encountering people of different nations, when she is trying to bring people of different cultures into communion with her son, that she becomes all things to all people, right? Just like Paul says, it's a basic foundational I guess move in evangelization, or it's an important aspect of evangelization, that it's called enculturation, and you see someone's culture, you see someone's dynamic, the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they are,
just the way they think,
the way they have
it,
fun, and then you purify it with the gospel. And so Mary is not going to say, "Hey, you have to conform yourself into these certain European ways, right, or African ways, or South American ways. I'm going to meet you where you're at," and that's what St. Paul says, and I think that's what Mary's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something there with especially the more national titles of Our Lady, right? Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Knock in Ireland, Our Lady of Akita in Japan. That's one I don't know much about. But there's all of these different ones, especially for different nations. And Our Lady of Guadalupe is a huge example, right, with our neighbors in Mexico. There's this familiarity there, and like each of these titles has some kind of story to it. and some kind of particular place. There's particular soil, there's particular city or a church or a mountain or something that those people in that country, in that region know and experience and can go to, and like they live there. And so it's a way almost for Our Lady to make make herself, I don't want to say belong, but just to connect sort of with people all over the world, really. To say, oh, like it's Our Lady of Fatima, and we know Fatima because Fatima's right over there, and it's part of Portugal, and we're Portuguese. So it's this sense of ownership almost, not of Our Lady, but of the title, and that you're part of something more specific and something personal to you and to your family and to your culture that you can then bring to Our Lady and bring to Christ, and then enter into the church through that.
Yeah, analogy I came up with was, parents relate differently to their individual children. At least that's been my experience in my own family and my friends, that you have to parent differently. And so one child might need one teaching, another child might need another teaching. One child may respond better to kind of more positive reinforcement. One child might need to be a little more negatively reinforced. And so it's different. And so we're the children of God, and we need something different. So we can't treat everyone the same whenever we're evangelizing, and Mary didn't do that as well. Mary is the first Christian, and she's the best example of a saint. And what does it mean to be a saint? It means to be a little Christ. It means to conform yourself to Christ. And what did he do? He poured himself out. I'm going to say a big phrase, Joy, and all those listening, kenosis. Kenosis is a theological term, and it just means to pour oneself out. To connote yourself means to pour yourself out, to kind of come down off your pedestal and meet people where they are. Jesus showed us this most perfectly on the cross. When Jesus Christ is the second person of the Trinity, he is God, and yet he poured himself out, so much so that his side was pierced, his heart was pierced, and blood and water poured out. Right? He was brought to humility for us. That's kenosis. It's basically the condescension of the incarnation. And Mary, as the perfect Christian, right, the first Christian and the one who totally emulates her son Jesus, she pours herself out and connotes herself to these different people, these different cultures, these different languages. An example I want to highlight is Our Lady of Guadalupe, because it shows how effective that is in evangelization. We can take like a play out of the playbook of Our Lady, of Mary. Up until that point and before, in the 1400s and the early 1500s, the Spanish Franciscans were not really having much success in evangelizing the natives of Mexico, right? They were there, they're trying, they got some converts. Juan Diego was actually one of them. Right. But there was just some suspicion of the natives of the Spanish missionaries and their connection to the conquistadors, their connection to the crown, and almost seeing it as like it's too overbearing, it's too far away, the culture is too different. And they weren't having much success. And then Our Lady appears to Juan Diego, and she appears in a particular way. She didn't appear like looking like a Semitic woman from the Middle East, 2,000 years ago, or at that time, 1,500 years ago. She didn't appear like a Spaniard, right? Right. She appeared as a native of Mexico. She appeared like a Mayan, and she even spoke the language, right, of the Mayans. And from that moment, right, with that miracle, and so if you're listening, you probably know the miracle, but she says, build a shrine. Juan Diego says, I need proof. She says, here, gather up these roses in your poncho and your tilma, and then bring it to the bishop. And she lays it out in front of the bishop, and on the tilma is the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe with all these, Aztec symbols, these native symbols. And so she becomes all things to all people. She appeared as a mind. And then from that moment, millions of people were converted. And that's the play out of Mary's playbook of evangelization, and is meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. And I want to add that it's not just a cultural thing, too. I mean, a lot of the titles of Mary that come to mind have some kind of national or cultural or ethnic significance for different people. But there's also all the titles and devotions we have that might span across cultures. Our Lady, Undoer of Knots, or even just the Immaculate Conception, or wow, I'm drawing a blank on a third one, but
I mean, the Immaculate Our Lady of Assumption. I mean, it's something
right.
that happened to Mary, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there's all these other titles. I mean, how many prayer cards?
Perpetual Help.
Yeah, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, Our Lady Help of Christians, right? There's all these different devotions to Mary under different titles that may not be associated with a specific place or specific people in history, but it still shows the ways that she relates to each of us individually. Yeah, but so there are all these different titles that not only denote someone's family or someone's cultural history, but your own individual spiritual needs. So, I mean, I often pray to Mary under the title of Our Lady Undoer of Knots. We have that whole series about it, and that's kind of how I first learned about it, frankly. But through Mary's intercession, there's been a lot of really difficult things in my life that have been untied and been solved. When there was things have been solved even when I can't see a way out. I sort of hand it over to Mary, and then in time, not that it resolves itself, but through grace, things get better. And that's why I still pray to her under that title, because that's a way that I've related to her in the past, and the way that she has related to me, and the way that she has brought the grace of Jesus Christ into my life. And so not everyone might need that. Not everyone might need that kind of relationship under that title with Our Lady. But there are many others. Our Lady of Grace is another example that people sometimes just...
Mercy.
Our Lady of Mercy, yeah. If they struggle to believe in grace, they struggle to believe in mercy, they struggle to believe in these things, they pray to Our Lady under that title, and then that part of their relationship, ultimately with God, is strengthened. Just like you said, the parent relating to her kids or his kids differently, Our Lady sort of fulfills the needs we have and helps bridge the gap between our brokenness and the perfection of Christ on an individual level.
Our Lady of Destroyer of Heresies.
That's a good one.
Isn't that one of them?
Yeah, I think we should bring it back.
She's got like a club in her hand. It's amazing. Yeah, thanks for that, Peter. Yeah, I kind of want to just end this talk about Mary and her different titles and different cultures and all this stuff by like pointing out that the gospel is not a culture, and that's kind of why this situation happens. Different, and this goes for different expressions of Jesus, right? How Jesus looks.
Right.
In some churches, you can, like in Africa, you might have black Jesus, right? And in
Yeah.
Europe, in Scandinavia, you're going to have like lily white Jesus, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's actually only a bad thing whenever one particular culture tries to grab a monopoly on Jesus, right? Because of the incarnation, he pours himself out.
Yeah.
And so he can inform every culture, right? The gospel is not a culture. In fact, the root of culture is cultus, which means worship. So every true culture is surrounding something that's outside of it that is good, and that is worship, the true worship of God. So every good culture in history has worship at the heart of it, and most perfectly has the worship of the one true God, Jesus Christ, and Christianity. That's kind of something I love about, I talked about PJs in New Orleans earlier, but I love about South Louisiana because our culture, even as depraved as it can be sometimes, and its popular expressions, actually the heart of it is worship, right? The cathedral's at the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Ash Wednesday's at the heart of its celebration. St. Joseph Day, the parades. The streets are named after saints. So even though people can get far away from it, somewhere deep down is the cultus, right? And that informs our culture. So we have to be able to let the gospel purify the cultures it encounters, not destroy the cultures that it encounters.
Yeah, gospel elevates the culture and can inform like your culture, and even down to I think the micro level within your family culture, but then more broadly. But it isn't a culture in and of itself. You can't put it in a box. You can't put Jesus in a box. You can't put Our Lady or God in a box. It just doesn't work. You can't put human limitations on it.
You do put Jesus in the tabernacle, so got you on that one.
All right, forget everything.
Anyway, I think it's time for Bean of the Week. Bean of the week. We all need a little pick-me-up. Here's ours. Peter, what's your bean?
Real simple. Exercise. It's been probably about 3 years since I've had a real exercise routine of any kind. And this week, kind of out of the blue, I just decided to kind of get back up on that horse. And so just
I can tell. You're looking.
yeah, I can tell because how sore I am. You know, there was a time when I could do chin-ups without really thinking about it, and that time is long in the past. So it is bitter medicine. But it's good. You know, it just sort of jumpstarts things. It clears your head a little bit, and I've been really glad to get back to it. It has been a pick-me-up. Really has been.
Awesome. Yeah. You know, whenever you started your bean of the week, you said, "It's been," and it reminded me of that song.
It's been 1 week.
1 week since you looked at me. And every time I hear confessions, not every time, but every once in a while, the person will be like, "Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. It's been," and I always think, 1 week since you looked at me. Packed a head to your side and said I'm angry. And I'm like, oh, if only they knew what was going through my head.
Well, I heard one joke once that was like, "Oh, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. I can't stop singing the Bare Naked Ladies." Well, when was your last confession? Well, it's been 1 week.
Yes, that's exactly my experience.
Oh,
okay.
my
Alex, what's your bean of the week?
I'll stick with the whole exercise thing. We're back to playing hockey every week.
Nice.
We got a game every Sunday now. We were on like a month and a half break basically, and they decided to just open the rink up again. So back to every week. Feels good.
What's your position?
I'm a left wing, which means I'm a forward.
Wait, why would you have to have a translation? I'm a left wing, which means I'm this. Why not just say the first thing?
I guess you could say I'm a forward, but specifically as a forward, my position is left wing.
Left wing.
Okay. I know nothing. I'm from Louisiana. We don't even see ice.
Okay.
The only time we see ice is in our like ice box.
I just find
Which
it
is what we
hilarious
call refrigerator.
Or 2 weeks ago when you had ice.
It's true.
That's true. We did have that. Well, my bean of the week is a little business called Home Chef. And basically, there's a bunch of them out there. I mean, what are Hello Fresh is another one. You got
Blue
Blue
Apron.
something.
Freshly.
Freshly. So the one that me and Father Jamin, my pastor, and the one of the canon lawyers of our diocese, we get Home Chef, which this isn't like an advertisement. I'm not like a sponsored by Home Chef here, but I just like the concept. I've enjoyed the concept. Yeah, if Home Chef, if you're listening, if the CEO is Catholic, you can sponsor us. But I just like the concept, and it's been really awesome because basically anytime we as priests would go shopping, we're not cooking for families, right? Mm-hmm. So we'd cook something, and we wouldn't use all of the ingredient, and it would like half of it would go bad. Basically, me and Jamie get to pick out what we want the next week. It comes in the mail. We don't waste any food. We don't waste any money. And it's like the ingredients, but we still get to cook and we still get to hang out. And It is healthy. At least it feels healthier when you're cooking it.
That's good.
I get that. I did that one time. I actually got Blue Apron. And it was one of the more satisfying, like, subscription-based things I had ever done. It does. You do feel very healthy because they give you good meals. I mean, you pick them out either way, but if you pick healthier stuff, you feel really good afterwards, especially cooking it.
Yeah, I mean, this past week I picked out buffalo wings, pizza, mac and cheese. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, it's been great. So it's just, you got to treat yourself. Hey, that's the theme today. Y'all talking about exercise. I'm talking about treating your body as a temple by eating healthy. Oh, get on it, people. It's Lent.
There we go.
You've been listening to Coffee Talk with me, Father Brad, and our resident good Catholics, Peter Gone and Alex Mersch. Coffee Talk is brought to you by the Catholic Company and is part of the Good Catholic Podcast Cooperative. If this episode has blessed you, you can find more content at www.goodcatholic.com/podcast. As always, we ask you to leave a review, a rating, share the pod with a friend, or simply pray for us in our mission. To quote the psalmist, taste and see that the Lord is good. Continue to drink deeply from our great faith. We'll talk next week. Peace.